Hola chicos, soy la señora Márquez Aponte, and on this lesson we are going to focus on how to use stem changing verbs, verbs that change from O to UE. Okay, so let's start with that. Okay, before watching this video, you should have already learned and practiced the meaning of 8 stem changing verbs in Quizlet. Activity 21, Part 3. Watch and answer questions in videos 4 and 5 in a puzzle. If you have completed this, please move on with this video. Gracias. Objectives, objetivos, to learn why we call some verbs stem changing or shoe or root verbs, how to conjugate stem changing verbs, compare stem changing verbs to regular verbs, and you will complete 5 sentences to demonstrate your understanding. Okay, so let's start with this. So, why are some verbs called stem changing verbs? Because the spelling changes in the stem or root. Por ejemplo, O to UE on these verbs. Okay, so basically what's happening there is that the O is changing to UE. For example, almorzar, costar, devolver, dormir, encontrar, recordar, volver, poder. See the O that is involved? That O is going to change to UE. Is that O going to change to UE for all of the subject pronouns? No. That's why we're going to see this in more details in the next few slides. Okay, so why are stem changing verbs called shoe or root verbs? Good question. So stem changing verbs are called shoe or root verbs because you can trace a shoe as you can see on this picture. Okay? You can trace a shoe or root around the forms of conjugations where the stem changes from O to UE. So let's take a look. So for example, yo vuelvo, tú vuelves. Usted, él, ella vuelve. Now let's take a look at nosotros, en vosotros. Are these conjugations inside or outside shoe? How are these conjugations different for nosotros and vosotros? Let's look at the stem. Okay, so as you can see, the O does not change to UE for nosotros and vosotros. Why? Because they're outside the shoe. Okay, so the shoe is only something that we can use to remember our conjugations. Now, the last conjugation inside the shoe is for ustedes, ellos, and ellas. Vuelven. So, here we go. All right, so be mindful, okay? Yo, tú, usted, él, ella, and ustedes, ellos, ellas go inside the shoe and they take the UE change. So the O changes to UE. Nosotros and vosotros stay outside the shoe, therefore the stem, the letter O, does not change. Okay. How to conjugate stem changing verbs ending in AR? Okay, so we're going to learn 3 steps to conjugate verbs. Okay, so the first step will be to find the subject. The subject is always a person, an animal, or a thing. Por ejemplo, Ana, blanc, contar, el dinero. The second step will be deciding if you need to change the O in the verb contar to a UE or not. And the last step will be to drop the verb ending. Okay, dropping the verb ending and replacing it with the ending that matches the subject. So here are some word banks that we can use to make things easier for us. Okay, so the subject here in the sentence, Ana contar el dinero es Ana. Muy bien. Okay. So now the next step is that you need to decide if Ana is one of those conjugations that go inside or outside the shoe. So let's trace the shoe. Okay. You can trace it with your mouse if you need to. Okay. And then decide, okay, if you need to change it to a UE. Yes, you do. Okay. You do have to change it because the conjugation for ella is this one. Okay. So you may say, Señora, I'm clear about changing the O to UE. I'm clear about finding Ana, but I'm not sure where you got that A at the end of the verb from. All right. Well, remember AR verbs? Okay. So for example, okay, the verbo hablar, when we conjugate it, when we say hablar, we're saying to talk. We're not saying who's doing the action. Okay, so now what I want you to do is take a look at the verb hablar conjugations. Okay, look at this column of the verb hablar. Look at all the conjugations that are in red. And now compare them to the verb conjugation endings for the verb contar. So what I want you to do is take a moment and compare the verb endings for hablar with the verb endings for contar. Are there any differences? No, there are no differences. Okay, the endings are the same. So, as you have learned AR verbs before, okay, the same conjugations. We're conjugating with Ana, ella. You see the last letters in A. Here too, cuenta. Okay, so we're using this, what we learned before, and we're just building up. All right, let's move on to the next one. How to conjugate some changing verbs ending in ER. In 3 steps as with the AR verbs, find the subject, decide if you need to change the O to UE, drop the verb ending and replace it with the ending that matches the subject. Por ejemplo, ¿cuándo volver tú a la escuela? When to come back, you to school. So we want to say, when do you come back to school? Or when are you coming back to school? Okay. So the first thing that is telling us is that we need to find the subject. So which one is the subject in this sentence? Tú. Muy bien. Okay. So now with the two, is to a conjugation that is inside a shoe or outside a shoe? Does the O needs to change to UE? Yes or no? So trace the shoe. Okay. Yes, it needs to change to a UE. Okay, so now let's look at the ending, the ER. Okay, we're dropping the ER, as it says here, and then we're substituting it, we're changing it to ES. Why? Because ES is the ending for to. How to conjugate stem changing verbs ending in IR. Again, same 3 steps. Okay, so we want to find the subject. Por ejemplo, dormir ustedes mucho o poco. We want to say, do you all sleep a lot or little? So the subject here is ustedes. Now, trace the shoe around the verb dormir, okay? And decide if you need to change that O to UE. Yes, you need to change it to a UE, okay, here. And what's the ending? Let's drop the IR. And once we drop the IR, we need to match it to the EN. Okay, because EN is the conjugation for ustedes, as you can also see it here on the left pink column for the verbo vivir. Now, again, take a quick look at the verb endings and compare them. Compare the verb endings for vivir, okay, to dormir. Compare the letters that are in red for vivir to the letters for dormir, to the last letters in dormir. Are they the same? Yes, they are. Okay. Alrighty, so what I was trying to tell you is that you do know how to conjugate verbs that end in AR, ER, and IR because this is something that we learned before. And when we are dealing now with stem changing verbs, we have to be at ease that we only need to focus on remembering when we change the O to UE and be confident that we already know or we have an opportunity to practice again AR, ER, and IR verbs endings. All right. Common errors among students when they practice stem changing verbs. Okay, these are the most common errors. Okay, the conjugations for nosotros and vosotros. Please be mindful, okay, that the conjugations for stem changing verbs for nosotros and vosotros do not change in the stem. The O does not change to UE. Now, let's compare an ER ending verb to an IR ending verb. Compare de nosotros and compare de vosotros. Are there any differences or similarities? Okay, so the endings are different. Okay, so ER verbs, we say nosotros, and the ending should be hemos. Vosotros es. When a verb ends in IR, okay, the spelling is imos. And for vosotros, is. Now, please show me that you understand this, and please complete these two questions using the work banks shown below. Okay, muy bien. Now, completa las oraciones. ¿Entendiste? Did you understand? Now we are going to evaluate your comprehension. You may use this workbank that is on the right-hand side, this picture, okay, to conjugate the words. Please remember that these are not the same words as the word in the parentheses. They may or they may not be, okay? On this example, it's not. But what you need to be mindful is that here you can use this for conjugations to kind of draw the shoe so that you remember whether you need to change the stem or not, and also to retrieve or remember the verb endings that are in red, should you need to look at it. Okay, so número 1. Mis amigos y yo, blank, encontrar información en la internet. Escribe tu respuesta, por favor. Dos. Poder yo ir al baño. Poder ends in ER, so your answer should be somewhere in here. 3. Poder tú hablar un poco de español. Poder, ER verb, so your answer should be somewhere here. ¿Cuánto, blank, costar las pulseras? Think about las pulseras. Okay, costar is an AR verb, so your answer for references is somewhere in here. ¿Dónde, blank, almorzar el estudiante nuevo? Almorzar ends in AR. You can use this. Okay. Muchas gracias, muy buen trabajo, gracias. Continue to the next activity. Continúa a la próxima actividad.